Okay, so it says given two independent random variables, x has a mean of 12.3 and a standard deviation of 0.5, and y with a mean of 9.1 and a standard deviation of 0.3. Which of the following is a true statement? The standard deviation of xy is 0.8. Well, I know that that's not true because I can't just add standard deviations together and then become the new standard deviation, so that's not true. If I were to find a new standard deviation, it'd have to be, like, I'd have to take the standard deviation of x, I'd have to redo the standard deviation formula. So I'd basically have to take the standard deviation of x and square it, plus the standard deviation of the other one squared, and then take the square root. That would be my new standard deviation, which is not going to give us 0.8. The variance of xy is 0.4. Well, I don't know, that might be. Well, let's just go with this. So variance, we haven't really talked about variance, but variance is just standard deviation squared. So basically what I'm doing is, if I'm saying this is the new standard deviation, I'm just going to square both sides. When I square a square root, all that does is it gets rid of it. So now I just have 0.5 squared plus 0.3 squared. So I'm going to plug that into my calculator and see what I get. 0.5 squared plus 0.3 squared equals 0.34, which it's what it says. So this is probably my true statement, but let's see. Median of xy is 3.2. Well, with the information they gave me, I'm not going to be able to find the median because I don't know any of the data. Same with the range. And the mean of xy is 21.4. Well, to me, this looks like x minus y. So I'm going to say that 12.3 minus 9.1 is not going to give us 12.4. So I'm going to cross that out as well because I'm not sure what they mean by that. So I'm going to go with variance. Okay, question 17. A real estate agent working entirely on commission weekly makes an average of $850 with a standard deviation of 260 selling property in the city, and an average of $1,340 with a standard deviation of $390 selling property in the suburbs. Assuming independence, so that means that selling in the city and selling in the suburbs has nothing to do with each other. On the two locations, what are the mean and standard deviation of her total weekly sales? All right. So I'm going to have new means, new standard deviations. So again, I'm going to use my trick of looking through my data or my answer choices. And I see that there are these two that are similar, and then these all have the same mean. So I already know that it's not going to be the one that's the 2. And I can see that they got that just by adding the mean, one of the means with the standard deviation. So that's not correct. So if I want the means together, I'm going to have to add them together. So 1,340 plus 850 will give us 2,190. So I know that my mean's correct. So now standard deviation. So just like we did earlier, I'm going to do the same thing again. So we are going to have to do 260 squared plus 390 squared, and then take the square root to find the new one. So I'm going to plug all of that into my calculator. Square root, and then I'm going to do 260 squared plus 390 squared. And that gives me 468.72. So I know that it's not this one and it's not 650. So it's, if I round up to the nearest dollar, that's going to be this top answer, $469. Okay, number 18. We're almost finished. A teacher is teaching 2 AP statistics classes. On the final exam, the 25 students in the first class averaged 87, while 30 students in the second class averaged 98. If the teacher combines the classes, what will the average final exam score be? All right, well, this one's a trick because you could think, okay, I'm going to add the 2 average scores together and divide by 2 because that's how you find mean. But in this one, it won't work because I have 25 students in one section and I have 30 students in another. So these 2 different groups are not proportional. So what I'm going to do is assume that all the 25 students got a score of 87. So that would give me my total of 25, meaning how many students there are. Each of them score 87, so I'm going to multiply by 87. And that's going to give us 2,175. And then for the next one, I'm going to say, all right, every single student in the class of 30 got a 98. So then I've got 30 times 98, and that gives us 30 times 98 is 2,940. So now I'm going to add these 2 scores together. So 2175 plus 2,940 gives us a total of 5,115. Now I'm going to divide by how many I have. And it's not 2 because I have technically 25 students plus 30 students. So my total is really 55 if I add these together. So I'm going to take my 5,115 divided by 55. And that's going to give me an answer of 93, which is right here. And that's how you solve that one. All right, 19. A random sample of golf scores gives the following summary statistics. So N is sample size, X bar is the mean, SX is standard deviation, the minimum, Q1, the median, Q3, and the maximum. Which can be said about number of outliers? All right, well, I already know that outliers, I have to do 1.5 times the interquartile range. So I'm going to take my Q3, which is 91, minus Q1, which is 78, multiplied by 1.5. And that's going to give me, and I'm just going to plug it all into my calculator. So 1.5 times 91 minus 78 gives me 19.5. And then I take my Q1 first, so that's 78 minus 19.5. So 78 minus 19.5 gives me 58.5. And I'm going to take my Q1 and add 19.5. And that's going to give me 91 plus 19.5 will be 110.5. So now, I know that my minimum is 68, so I don't really care about this lower stuff because I don't have anything that goes that low. But I do know that I have a maximum of 112. So I know that I have at least one outlier. But since this is not 112 and this says 110.5, in my data somewhere, since I don't know what it looks like, I could have 111 as a choice. So I know that I just have at least one. I could have 111 as well in my data, so I know that I have at least one outlier. Okay, last one. Given the median is 270 and the interquartile range is 20, which of the following statements is true? The mean is between 250 and 290. Well, I don't know anything about the mean at all. All I know is the median and the interquartile range, which kind of gets me thinking about a box plot, and the mean isn't going to show up on a box plot. Neither is standard deviation, so I already know I don't even need to read that. 50% of the data are between 260 and 280. Okay, well, I know that the median is 270. The interquartile range is 20, but that doesn't have to be split in half. So, I mean, this could be 5 here and 15 here, so that would be 265, and that would be 285, and that would equal 20 still. So and that would be 50% of our data, so that's not true. 75% of the data are less than or equal to 280. Again, I don't even know if 280 is even one of the important points, so no. 50% of the data are greater than or equal to 270. 50% of the data. So if I'm looking at some sort of, here's my box plot. I don't know what the min is, but here's the min. I don't know what the max is, but here's the max. And here I know my median is 270. So, and whatever this chunk is 25%. I know that. And this is 25%. So it is true that 50% of my data is 270 or more, because 270 is the middle, which is the median. So that last one is my answer. All right, I hope this helps you. I hope that you took notes and try to learn this stuff, because this is like the exact questions that are going to be on your AP exam. When you get finished looking over these questions and really studying them, then I want you to go back and retake your What Did You Learn quiz. You have unlimited times to take it until this Thursday at 11:59 p.m.